Happy Saturday to everybody. Good morning. Hope your weekend is going to be a great one. Looking forward to seeing everybody tomorrow at church. I just want to kind of give you some scripture here, some words of encouragement here this morning before we kick off our weekend. If you've been in my Bible study the last couple of weeks, we've been going over Psalm 23. And we've obviously established that that's probably one of the most widely well-versed, well-known scriptures in the Old Testament. I remember knowing that scripture backwards and frontwards when I was just a little kid, and so it's just a special chapter of the Bible, and it just does so much for us. And we've really learned a lot the last couple of weeks of my Bible study, and I kind of want to just kind of piggyback on that a little bit, and then talk a little bit about something else that pertains to David. But the biggest thing about this psalm is that David is at the end of his life, and he's reflecting on all that God has done for him up to that point. And I asked our group the other night, if you could just sum up at this moment in your life who God is to you. We had all different kinds of answers. They were all great answers. But David's response, when he summed up who God was to him throughout his life, at the end of his life, and all that he had done for him, he called the Lord, he said, "The Lord is my shepherd." And it's just such a special thing to call Lord, Yahweh, all-knowing, all-powerful, everywhere, all the time, Yahweh. And he's going to refer to that person as a shepherd. And it's just a really powerful chapter. And we're only going to go over one verse in Psalm 23. And it's just a moment of reflection for David. And if we look at Psalm 23, we're going to look at verse 2. And it says, "He lets me rest in green meadows, and he leads me beside peaceful streams." And we really dissected that verse 2 weeks ago. And a lot of people's verses will say still waters. He leads me beside still waters. And so a lot of times what a shepherd would have to do is actually take his sheep to a stream or a river, and sometimes that stream or river would be raging or moving very quickly, and he would physically have to dam that up in order for his sheep to drink and not fall in, because sheep are just not capable of really making their own decisions. And so he would have to actually dam up an area of the stream or the river for his sheep to safely drink. And so if you apply that to your life, you can think back on all the things that God's done for you in the past, and the rivers He's dammed up in your life in order for you to drink and for you to rest, or in order for you to rehydrate and replenish your soul. And I think reflection is good. I'm not telling us to dwell in the past. That's not what I'm telling us. I'm telling us that we can really see what God has done for us if we reflect and go back and really remember all that God has done for us. And now that's going to bring me to our next subject. And I want to turn over to Matthew. We'll be in Matthew chapter 1. And we're going to really go back in time here. We're going to go a little bit of Jesus' lineage and really reflect on the past, where he came from, and who were his family members were, and his family tree, if you will, his 23andMe, his however you want to say it, his DNA. Okay, and if we look at chapter 1, and we start at verse 6, it says, "Jesse was the father of King David. David was the father of Solomon, whose mother was Bathsheba, the widow of Uriah." Now we look at this lineage here, and there's so many people in it. There's women, there's men, the list goes on and on. But it's really, when I was trying to study, when we were doing a lot of studying with David and Psalms and all those things, it really hit me that Bathsheba is in Jesus's family lineage. And I really want us to talk about what that means, and we can try to dissect that. Why is she in David's lineage? And so when we think about the word Bathsheba and who Bathsheba was, a lot of times the preconceived notions are that Bathsheba was a bad person. She committed adultery with David. She cheated on her husband. All those things. And so I really want us to try to look at this study through the lens of through Bathsheba and how she actually perceived things that were happening to her. Okay, because when we read in the book of Samuel, when we read the story in 2 Samuel 11, it just talks about the things that David did. It really didn't give a perspective of what Bathsheba was dealing with us. Okay, so just a quick background on Bathsheba. Her father, his name was Eliam. He was a revered soldier in David's army. Her husband Uriah, who you all know, David killed later on after he had the affair with Bathsheba. He was one of the top 30-foot soldiers in David's army. Okay, so David not only knew Bathsheba, but he also was very fond of her father and her husband. Okay, and so I think Bathsheba was probably living a pretty good life. She was a good wife. She was had a good husband. She had a good father, an upstanding family. Okay, and so I don't think that we can really take the notion that Bathsheba was kind of in on this, if you will. I believe that Bathsheba was a victim more than anything, and so when we look at it through the eyes of Bathsheba, and if we look at the scriptures in 2 Samuel 11:27, it says that God said that David did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Okay, it doesn't say that Bathsheba did evil in the sight of the Lord. Okay, so when we look at what happened to Bathsheba, think about it. We get this scene where she's bathing. A lot of times we think of it as she's being a seductress or whatever, but I don't think that's the case. And the Bible's clear. If you read it, it talks about how she was cleansing herself from her menstruation period. Okay, so she had just finished that, and she was doing her ritual cleansing. Okay, she wasn't just out there, soaping up and lathering up and knowing David's watching. I think it was something that she was doing in order to just fulfill the law and do the right thing. It wasn't anything that was being seductive at all. Okay, and so once David sees her doing this, what does he do? He calls for her. He lays down with her, and then the next 9 months, what happens? She becomes a widow. She gives birth to her son, who is David's father. The Bible doesn't mention the child's name. That child dies. So in a matter of a year, she's a widow, and she loses her firstborn with David. Okay, and so her life has been turned upside down. Okay, and then you look further and further on and what happens in their life and the results of all of David's sin in her life. She's got other kids that are fighting. There's rape going on within her family. There's all sorts of turmoil, and so Bathsheba is literally the victim in this story, and the Bible is very, very clear about that. So why is Bathsheba in Jesus's lineage? I think there's a couple of reasons. I think, okay, we have to understand that the reason she's in Jesus's lineage is because God's grace is stronger than our past, and her past is riddled not only with her sin, because we're all sinners, but she was really riddled with the sin of David and what he did to her and her family. Okay, and so we have to understand that Jesus not only died for our sin, which we all believe, okay, but he also came to pay for someone else's sin. And a lot of times we often forget that. So there may be instances in your life where you've been wronged by somebody. You are completely 100% the victim. And so when you see Bathsheba's name on Jesus' lineage, it is something that you can really reflect on and understand that, wow, that lady is part of Jesus' family, and all that she went through, and all that she achieved a lot of things, okay? But at the same time, she's a victim. And a lot of us, myself included, have been victim of other people's sin. And so watching this video today, you've been a victim of other people's sin. And so the fact that her name is in the lineage really can allow us to take comfort in the fact that God has a heart for people that are victims. And we've got to understand that God's grace is stronger than our past. And I think Bathsheba also had a situation where there was some redemption there. And you guys ever heard of King Solomon? Well, that was her son. And we all know a lot about King Solomon. And so just today, just reflect a little bit on what God has done for your life. And a lot of times we try to hide the past, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but at the same time, we've got to look at our past and understand exactly all God has done for us. And it's just a beautiful thing that Bathsheba is in his lineage, and she's not the only one. We could do lesson after lesson on Jesus's lineage, but today, just thank God for all he's done for you. Thank God for the waters that he's stilled for you, the waters that he's dammed up for you, and understand that Jesus came to pay for someone else's sin. Not only yours, but someone else's sin. Hope you guys have a great Saturday. God bless you.